Who are Hamas?
Who are Hamas? Hamas is like two sides of the same coin. On one side, they're a political group in Palestinian areas. On the other, they're known for using military force, committing unspeakable terrorist acts, and have been involved in conflicts like the sudden attack on Israel. This makes people see them in very different lights, but understanding Hamas isn't just about what they do. It's also about the bigger picture of the long-standing troubles between Israelis and Palestinians and how tricky and tangled the situation is in the Middle East. So when we talk about Hamas, we also need to talk about many years of history and a region where peace is hard to find. Hamas is a key and very complicated group that works in the middle of the often unpredictable world of politics in the Middle East. It started in 1987 during a very chaotic time, known as the First Intifada, when Palestinians protested against Israeli control. It first appeared as a smaller part of the Muslim Brotherhood, a famous group supporting Islam. But Hamas quickly grew from a small movement to a strong power in the world of politics. However, people around the world see Hamas in very different ways. Some people support it as a proper resistance group, while others call it a terrorist group because of its use of violent actions like bombings and rocket attacks against Israelis, both soldiers and ordinary people. To understand what Hamas is about and what it has done over time, we need to look at the bigger picture of the ongoing conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. This long fight over who should own the land and how people should be able to live there has been going on for more than 100 years, with many wars, protests, and attempts to make peace that didn't work out. The situation is made even more difficult with different cultural and religious groups clashing, and countries around the world pushing for different outcomes. These complicated interactions play a big role in how people across the globe think about Hamas. What motivates Hamas, known fully as Harakat al-Muqawama al-Islamiyya, or the Islamic Resistance Movement, is the desire to set up an Islamic country in the whole area that has historical and religious importance as Palestine. This area includes the land that is now the country of Israel, which is a major source of disagreement in this larger fight. Even though Hamas has shown some changes in what it wants, like in 2017 when it said it would agree to a Palestinian country that follows the borders from before the 1967 war, it still doesn't recognize Israel as a lawful country. This position makes trying to find peace really hard. This strong position against Israel is a fundamental part of its original mission and the policies that followed, mixing beliefs from Islamic teachings with the political goal of independence and fighting against what they see as unlawful control by Israel. This mix of religious beliefs and political goals is a key part of how Hamas talks and makes decisions, affecting how it manages things within its group and how it deals with others outside the group. Inside Hamas, things are complicated too. It has a part that focuses on politics and another on military actions, and sometimes it's hard to tell the two apart. The leaders of Hamas aren't all in one place, but are spread out in different places across the Middle East. They do this partly for safety to avoid attacks from enemies, and also because they're trying to keep and make new friends in the area. Some of the well-known leaders are Ismail Haniyeh, who is in charge of the political side, and Yahya Sinwar, a tough leader in the Gaza Strip area. The politics among Palestinians are also complicated because of a competition between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, which is under the control of Fatah, a big political group in the West Bank. Fatah, which is recognized by countries around the world and is more willing to talk with Israel, is seen as less legitimate by some Palestinians because of problems with corruption, not being effective, and working with Israel on security. On the other side, Hamas has been in charge of the Gaza Strip since 2007, after a violent struggle with Fatah following elections, and it has a lot of influence among Palestinians. This makes Hamas a group that can't be ignored when trying to make peace. But Hamas doesn't just focus on politics and military actions. It has also put a lot of effort into helping people, setting up schools, hospitals and religious places that offer important services in the Gaza Strip, which is poor and cut off from the rest of the world. Through these helpful actions, and because it's seen as relatively honest and as standing up to Israel, Hamas has gained a lot of support from Palestinian people. This popularity helped it to win unexpectedly in the Palestinian elections in 2006. How the world reacts to Hamas is filled with different opinions and a lot of arguments. Several countries and groups, especially the United States, the European Union, Israel and some others, officially call it a terrorist group. They say this because of how Hamas keeps using violence, won't accept that Israel has a right to exist, and doesn't clearly say it will stop using militant ways. However, there are countries like Iran and Turkey that show they support Hamas in different ways. Iran, for example, is known to give a lot of money, weapons and military training to the part of Hamas that fights, called the Izz ad-Din al-Qassam Brigades. The way Hamas gets its money is as complicated as its political actions. It has gotten money through donations from governments and people around the world who want to help it, often using unofficial ways to get around rules that stop international money transfers because of sanctions. In the areas it controls, Hamas has made its own kind of economy, collecting taxes and making money by controlling different goods and services. But the world doesn't really know all about how it gets its funding. And there are claims that it uses money meant for helping people to support its military instead. This causes a lot of international complaints and close watching. The difficult relationship between Hamas and Israel has seen several periods of intense fighting, with big conflicts happening in 2008 to 2009, 2012, 2014, and an especially harsh 11-day battle in 2021. The things that happened in 2023, like Operation Al-Aqsa Storm, shows that Hamas is continuing to get better at fighting, making a big jump in how organized and effective it is. These battles, even though they are different in how long they last and how severe they are, always end up with a lot of ordinary people getting hurt or killed, buildings being destroyed, and large-scale humanitarian problems that affect areas far outside of the region. Every now and then there have been small signs that Hamas's political leaders might be open to discussions, showing they might join talks arranged by others. However, these small steps haven't led to real change, because Hamas isn't willing to do what the international community says it must do for it to be officially recognized and included in formal talks. These requirements, like saying no to violence, recognizing Israel, and accepting agreements made before between Israel and the Palestinians, haven't been met, which makes the chance of real peace talks seem far away. The future for Hamas isn't easy to predict. They face challenges from within their group and outside influences. Their impact on local politics will be shaped by various factors. These include the desires of the Palestinians themselves, actions taken by Israel's leaders, shifts in Middle Eastern politics, and how the world views the ongoing struggle between Israelis and Palestinians. For context, the Palestinian group Hamas was founded in 1987 during the First Intifada, a Palestinian uprising against the Israeli presence in the West Bank and Gaza. It's important to know that Hamas has been ruling the Gaza Strip since 2007, after winning a majority in the 2006 Palestinian legislative elections and subsequently taking control from their political rival Fatah. However, their rule has been hard for the people living in Gaza. According to a 2018 World Bank report, Gaza has one of the world's highest unemployment rates at over 50%. Much of this hardship is due to blockades imposed by Israel and Egypt, aiming to stop weapons from reaching Hamas, but also limiting the flow of goods and people, affecting everyday life for the citizens. One big reason for the blockade is that many countries like the United States and those in the European Union have labelled Hamas a terrorist organisation, due to its history of attacks against Israel. However, some countries like Russia, Turkey and Norway don't agree with this label and argue for diplomatic interactions with Hamas. The relationship between Israelis and Palestinians has been complicated for decades, going back to mid-20th century conflicts like the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, following the establishment of the State of Israel. Both sides have deep historical and cultural claims to the land, which makes peace discussions very complex. Today, Hamas stands at a crossroads. They must decide between two major options. The first is to work on being seen as a proper political party. This path could lead to peace and improve life for Palestinians by, for instance, easing the blockades. An example of such a transformation is the African National Congress in South Africa, which evolved from a liberation movement involved in violent struggles during apartheid to the ruling party in the country's post-apartheid democratic era. The second option for Hamas is to continue their current path, which might keep them cut off from a lot of the world and involved in endless conflict. This situation is somewhat like North Korea, largely isolated due to its nuclear ambitions and actions that are seen as aggressive by many countries worldwide. Hamas's decision is significant not only for their future, but also the broader Middle East region. Their choices will influence relationships with neighbouring countries and might either fuel or help cool down regional tensions that have historical roots dating back thousands of years. So everyone's watching closely to see what Hamas decides to do next. Any talk about what path Hamas is on and what that means for politics in the Middle East has to really understand many things: how it started, what it believes in, what its goals are, and the larger political world it's a part of. What Hamas does and decides will have a deep and wide impact on the future of the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, and on whether the larger area can be stable. The big question that hasn't been answered is whether Hamas can change into only a political group and give up armed fighting, or if it will keep on using violence. What Hamas decides to do, how others in the region and the world react, and how all sorts of unexpected events come together will all play a part in deciding if the long-held hope for peace and stability in the area will stay out of reach or become something real. What's next for Hamas? Will they be part of bringing peace, or will they make the situation more complex? Let's discuss this in the comment section. Smash that like and subscribe for more.